Exactly, Maya, they're all yours.
Thank you. Hola a todos. Sí, voy a hablar en inglés y lo siento mucho porque mi español es muy malo. Entonces, so yes, I will speak in English. Yeah, as said, if I'm going too fast, too slow, just please let me know, and I will try to fix that. So, a brief introduction about me. I was born in London, in North London, in a place called Stoke Newington. And then when I was about 2 or so, I moved to Brighton, which is in the south coast of England. And from then, I've lived in a lot of different places in the UK, in the north, in the south, and even in Scotland as well. And now I am, as Jessie said, I'm living in Kent, which is southeast. So I've been around a little bit, and I've also lived in New Zealand for about 10 years. So I have a little bit of a comparison that I can give you an insight into speaking English and different cultures in England and the UK in different parts, as well as New Zealand, where it's a kind of different culture, but similar in a lot of ways. So I thought I would just start off by going over some stereotypes about the UK and British culture, and see what you guys think, because I think there are some which are definitely not true, and some which I can see why they are always what people think of the UK. So first of all, stereotypes not true. Number one, bad teeth. I think everyone thinks Brits have really bad teeth. I think we can blame maybe Austin Powers for this or something, or just older generations. But in my experience, I have never seen anyone with that terrible teeth. And some people have told me that I have fairly good teeth. So I think that is the number one thing you can say is not a very accurate stereotype of the UK. The second one, I think, would be probably the accent. I don't know. Maybe this is not what the stereotype is, but I have an idea that most people think that the British accent is kind of like the Cockney accent, like, oh, all right, mate, all right, how you doing? Yeah, like kind of like that. And I think that some people do talk like that for sure, but these days, I think it's quite different from that. So you can go, to a different place in the UK, you will have so many different accents. And if you're interested, I know there's some videos on YouTube of like different accents around the UK, and there's so many different ones, which I guess is the same in pretty much every country, isn't it? But I think that's one that not many people really have that accent of, oh, right, so that's number two. And number three, I think that a lot of people have a perception that British people are very monarchistic, and we all really love the Queen and the royal family, which again is true for a lot of people, but it's very divided. There are some people in the UK who are not in any way fans of the royal family, and they actually oppose the fact that the monarchy is there. So, and that has, especially recently, that's kind of become even more obvious. I don't know if you guys have heard the news of things with like Prince Andrew and the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. That was, when was that? Like last year or the year before, even.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has been a big kind of negative impact on the royalty, and also very recently, in the last few weeks, the media has revealed that the Queen and Prince Charles have been interfering in policy making in the UK. So now we have this kind of new idea of how the monarchy is in the UK, and I think it's really changing now. We don't all love the Queen and everything, so that's another one that you can say that's a busted stereotype. But there are definitely some stereotypes which are completely true. So number one of these, I think, is the idea that British people are very overly kind of polite. So there's definitely a stereotype that British people love queuing, like waiting in line, and that's definitely true. We are very good at waiting our turn and being very patient and all that kind of thing, and yeah, keeping manners in public and things like that. And I think you notice that also driving. When I lived in New Zealand, I learned to drive over there, and the driving there is really different from here. A lot of people in New Zealand won't necessarily wait for you or anything like that. But here in the UK, everybody's really polite on the road, and there's lots of right of way and things like that. So the politeness stereotype is true. The second one that I think is quite an obvious one is the weather. So although I'm talking to you today and it's nice and sunny outside the window, definitely the weather in the UK in general is not very good. We have a lot of rain, grey skies, and things like that. And when I lived in Scotland, I think it rained probably 90% of the time when I was there. So it's pretty bad. But yeah, I guess that's one of the things that's changing now with climate change and stuff like that. So for now, it's true, but let's see in the future. And the last one, I wonder if you can guess, it's tea. Drinking tea. That is definitely true. And that's something that I would definitely say 99% of people do. I mean, most people drink black tea, like the English breakfast tea, but even like herbal tea or something, we're always drinking tea. And people in the UK all have kind of their own special way of doing tea. Like my cousin, for example, she would not let me make a cup of tea for her because she's really particular about how she likes her tea. And there's different brands of tea bags and things like that. So it's really like a cultural phenomenon, I guess. But definitely, we are tea lovers in this country. And even now in Scotland, they've started a project of, they have got some tea plantations now in Scotland. So they're really, really keen on it, I think. So there we go. That's some kind of tea stereotypes. And then talking about some other kind of what I would describe as kind of quintessentially British things that I really like about the UK. And the first one of those is this kind of culture that we have here in the UK of almost a Sunday ritual. So on a Sunday morning, a lot of people in the UK will have their fry up, it's called, which is like a big breakfast. And I know my fiance, who's from Mexico, he loves this about being in the UK because on a Sunday morning, you'll have your meal and it's like sausages, bacon, baked beans, tomatoes, mushrooms, toast. And I think that's something that other cultures and places around the world have, but definitely in the UK, that's a really popular thing. So on a Sunday morning, you have the fry up And then on Sunday evening, you have your Sunday roast. So Sunday is just basically all about eating. And sometimes having a walk in the countryside if that's what you like. But yeah, eating the Sunday meals are the really big thing. So the roast is like you have a piece of meat, so chicken or maybe beef, lamb, and you roast that with vegetables like potatoes, carrots, and you have broccoli, peas, Yorkshire pudding, which is like kind of like a baked pancake if you haven't had it, which it's really nice. And then gravy, and that's another thing that my fiance from Mexico loves. So that's something I think I really also like about the UK is the food. It's yeah, it's a nice time on Sunday. You know you're gonna eat well on Sunday, which is good. Um, Another quintessentially British thing that I like is the landscapes that we have. So if you think of, I don't know, something that I think is really Britishy is a place called Byberry, and if you can Google it, it's called yeah, Byberry. It's in the Cotswolds, which is southwest of England, and there you can see just this row of cottages, these small houses that are very cute, and they look very, very British. And that's the kind of thing of how the landscape looks that I think is a very nice part of it as well. And then there's also landscapes like things you see in Harry Potter or something like that. So like the castle in Harry Potter was up north in a place called Alnwick. I think they filmed it there. And so those are things also that are cool, like nice places to go in the UK. And one more thing that British people also are like really proud of is the NHS, and that is the National Health Service. So basically, it's free healthcare or subsidized. So if you think about maybe the situation in the US where you have to have medical insurance, it's kind of like opposite of that. So here in the UK, if you're unwell, if you need help from a doctor, you are entitled to go and get medical care for free, more or less. That's something that British people are really proud of, really happy to have. Something that has been very, very important during the coronavirus pandemic. Um, and yeah, actually, during COVID at the beginning of the lockdown here, which was a year ago now, wow, we had
Yeah.
this thing where we would clap for the NHS. So at 8 o'clock at night on Thursday nights for about 5 or 6 weeks or maybe more, people would go to their doorstep, open the door, just stand outside and just clap for the NHS because, thank you for taking care of us. Um, so that's definitely a really Britishy thing that I think people are really proud of and happy to have. Unfortunately, with our current government, we have, not to get too political, but we have the Conservative Party now. We've had them for a few years, and they they are quite they are quite well known for wanting to sell off the NHS to make it private, and that's something that a lot of people will object to. So it's an interesting kind of view, I think, on how the UK is moving now in more kind of modern times. So mentioning the Queen and our changing attitudes to the Queen, and also the NHS, and that it's I think we are going through a moment now where things are really kind of being questioned. And yeah, it's an interesting time to be here. But my partner and I sometimes joke like the UK never had a proper revolution. Maybe now we'll have one. So let's see. But so those are all kind of good things, and I do have a couple of things that I think are not so good about the lifestyle in the UK as well. And these ones are based on my experience living in New Zealand. So just compared to that. So the first one is I think that the UK has quite an unfit culture. Nowadays, obviously, there's a lot more people who are trying to get fit and whatever, Instagram pictures, I don't know. But when I was growing up, when I first moved to New Zealand, I was about 10 or 11. And when we got there, we had to do, at school, we had to do a fitness test, which was horrible. And we had to run up and down the school field, and they would time us to see how fit we were. And I was so unfit at first. And I think it's because when you're growing up at school in the UK, there is not really much emphasis on going outside and fitness and things like that. To be fair, I think New Zealand is a super outdoors fit kind of place. So maybe it's not a very fair comparison. But yeah, definitely in the UK, it's not generally really a fit kind of place, I think, in the world anyway, compared to the world. And another thing I think they probably also actually go together is the fact that the lifestyle here can be quite stressful. I think, and I'm talking about, growing up, I think here. In New Zealand, we had a few exams and then I went to university there. And in New Zealand, there's about 4 or 5 universities in the whole country. So it's quite easy to choose which one you want to go to. But here in the UK, we have so many universities, and there's a big pressure on young people to achieve and go to university. And I think it's really stressful for young people. Sometimes there'll be articles in the news about young people's well-being and how stressed everybody is because they're so focused on doing well in school. And so I think that's another thing that is it's not so good about the lifestyle here because it's difficult for young people, I think, in that way. So that's kind of like the things about the stereotypical England and Britain and some cultural things as well. And then I just had a couple of thoughts also on the language itself, which has been really interesting to think about because there's definitely good things and bad things. So to start with some of the good things, I think that the kind of history of the English language is quite interesting. It's a really old language, and I think that there's some really nice things in literature and poetry and things. So Shakespeare, for example, is something I think is quite cool to be able to read that, even though it's not exactly maybe how people were speaking then, it's still a nice reflection of how the language has developed over time. So I think that's good. Um, and then in terms of actually learning the language, I was trying to think of if it's good or bad. I learned English when I was, I don't know, 2, 3. I learned it when I was really young, and so I don't really remember a lot about learning it. Not saying I learned it all when I was that age, by the way. Obviously, it takes years, but I remember that there's some rules about learning English that are quite helpful. And it was interesting because I looked online to see if there were any good rules for learning English, and they were all quite technical things that I guess I don't always think of because I've known the language longer, but I think there's some good rules that make it easier to remember things. So, only one I can think of is I before E except after C. But that is really helpful, and I think of that rule a lot when I'm spelling things. That's a really good one. So, yeah. But then, as I say, it was really interesting to think about this because there's definitely some things about the language that I also think are not very good. So I guess it's good and bad, but the fact that English is one of the most widely spoken languages in the world, for me, makes it too easy to default to English, which is quite sad, I think. I went to France with my friend years ago, and we went to a cafe, and straight away she sat down and she said, "Hello, I will have a croissant and a coffee." And it's just that assumption that everyone speaks English that I think is really sad and actually doesn't. It's not advantageous for native English speakers because if you're somebody who likes, knowing more about the world, there will be a situation where somebody doesn't speak English. And so I think it's really important to know another language. And of course, here in the UK also, we do have other languages than English. We have also Gaelic and Welsh. So I don't know much about either of them, sadly. Gaelic is like the Scottish and Irish kind of Celtic language, which I'm sure there are people out there who speak fluently that language, but there is not really ever an opportunity to engage with that language here in England anyway. And Welsh also. Welsh is a really interesting language. If you've ever seen like some Welsh words written down, they look very different. But that's the whole language that people are still using. And actually, here in the UK, we have a supermarket called Iceland, and they have like lots of frozen foods, but they are based in Wales. And the boss of Iceland has been caught saying that the Welsh language is horrible, and I think he got fired, which is I don't know, but yeah, there you go. It's that kind of attitude that I think is quite difficult. Like English is, the most important here, and so I think that we should say, children should learn another language, especially if it's something like Spanish, which is so widely spoken. Yeah, I mean, of course, an individual can choose to do it, but I think, yeah, it would be good if more and more people decided to learn more languages. I think that's true of everywhere, but yeah, that was the other thing. I don't want to end on a negative note, but that was the last kind of note I had written down. But generally, yeah, there's some good things about being a native English speaker. But of course, also sometimes I think, I need to know more. But that's up to me, and I do try and learn Spanish. Yeah, we need to do more, me and my partner. But yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for that very interesting presentation, Maya. Muchas gracias. No sé si alguien tenga alguna pregunta para Maya. Échenle, échenle sin pena. Any
You'd
questions?
better have questions,
Yeah.
especially our students.
Okay, Daniel has a question. Go ahead.
Hello, hello, good morning.
Hello.
Hello, I am Daniel. I am a student of Anglia, the best school of English in Leon. I have a strange question about other kind of stereotype, but I love the football now, and in this world of the football exists certain legend or information about of the English football fans. Information like they are very fanatics and like the hooligans. Is truth or not? What is your opinion? Do you like the football?
Hi, Danielle. Thank you for your question. I do like football, but it's been quite a recent development. I think I only kind of got into it more in the World Cup, the most recent one. But now I can say, yes, I'm a football fan. Um, it's definitely true. Yeah, the hooliganism. I think in my granddad's day, I don't know if you know the team Millwall, but in his time there was really bad hooliganism, and my dad, growing up kind of near to there, he used to want to go to the football matches, but my grandma didn't want him to go and get involved in all that behavior, so they got him a drum kit instead, so he would stay at home playing drums and stay away from the hooligans. But yeah, it's definitely true, and I think these days there's more of a focus on racism in football, which is can be really bad. So you'll see some really bad behavior from spectators, making comments to the players, and actually players to each other also. So you are seeing now like this let's stand up against racism. Yeah, of course, with COVID, we haven't had people watching the football, like the audience, for a long time now. I don't know. Hopefully, when it comes back, people won't be so crazy. But yeah, definitely that can happen for sure. Sadly,
Thank you very much.
no worries. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Maya. Alma. Alma has another question. Go ahead, Alma.
Thank you. Oh, hi, my name is Salma. I have two questions. The first one, what is the name of your dog?
Of my dog. Oh, my dog is Sasha, and I'm sorry that you could hear her barking before.
Don't worry. Thank you. And the second one is, have you ever visited Mexico?
Yes, I did. Only once so far. I went in Christmas 2019. So a couple of years ago, I was there for Christmas, which was a really awesome experience, and very cool as well because it's quite different from the UK Christmas. So I know that you guys in Mexico celebrate mostly on the 24th, but here that's Christmas Eve, and the 25th is the day that we really celebrate a lot more. But yes, I've been to Guanajuato, and I'm really hoping that if COVID is all okay, then I will be able to come again this Christmas and maybe see some other places as well. So if you have any suggestions, let me know.
Yeah, there are
Um,
many places where you can go and visit.
Maybe it can be a homework for our
Thank you.
students to create some sort of tour for Maya's next holiday.
Uh,
That would be
Just saying.
awesome. That would be awesome.
Ya oyeron, ¿eh? Su tarea, su próxima tarea. Ah, it can be a project, el proyecto final for our students. Okay, aquí ideando. Bueno, ya oyeron. So yes, thank you very much, Alma. Omar has a question. Échale, Omar.
Hello, my name is Omar, of the student in the Anglia. My question is, which is the Harry Potter movie you like the most?
Hi, Aurora. What did you say, the movie or book? Sorry. Well, maybe it's the same answer, actually. I think the movie, I think my favorite movie would be The Goblet of Fire, number 4. And actually, book also, I think that was a good one because a lot of exciting things happen. They have the tournament, which is cool. But I also like when it gets a bit more intense later on. So I do like the last one as well. That's really good. Yeah. Love Harry Potter.
Yeah. Celia has a question.
Yes.
Bonjour, Celia.
Bonjour. Bueno, first of all, se pronuncia, no, it's pronounced Harry Potter.
Harry
And,
Potter.
maybe you, ¿puedo preguntar en español?
Ok, puedes preguntar en español.
Maybe you told this and I don't understand, or maybe no. At school, you have to learn other language. Ay, estoy sudando.
So you don't have to. It's not compulsory, but you can. And I did do a little bit of French at school, but that was when I was in New Zealand. But here in the UK, it's not compulsory. There are some private schools, the ones that you have to pay a lot. And I think there sometimes they do say you must learn at least one other language. But for the majority of kids here, I don't think a lot of them have that opportunity, sadly, at the moment.
And
Yeah.
what is the what is the other language more famous in
England.
¿cuál es el otro idioma más famoso, entre comillas, en Inglaterra? ¿Francés, alemán, italiano? ¿Cuál?
Good question. I'm not sure. I think, yeah, I'm not sure actually. Indian.
Oh,
I don't know. What's that? Urdu. I know. I actually think it probably is Spanish. And Italian actually. Like, and I'm just basing that from walking down the street, hearing somebody on their phone. I think I hear Spanish often and also Italian. But yeah, it depends where you go also, I guess. But yeah, I think what is the name of the Indian language? I guess there's a lot. There's a lot. But yeah, you hear everything, especially if you're in the southeast or London, you know. If you're in London, you will just hear everything.
okay.
I believe it is
Thank
Hindi.
you very much.
Hindi, yeah. That sounds familiar.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Celia, for that question. And Mitzi has another question. Go ahead, Mitzi.
Hello, good morning. I am a Shakespeare fan, and I love all the plays that he represented, and all the movies and all the themes about Shakespeare. And I was planning to go last year, 2020, but because of that situation, I can't. And I was like counting the days to go.
Oh no.
Then suddenly happened this situation, and I I don't know if I could go after this all passes, and I was wondering how how if you have go to this global theater of Shakespeare, that there's that if you know the place, and that if what that no, what do you feel when you are there? That if you feel something like if you are going to that era.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hi, Mitzi. It's nice to meet another Shakespeare fan. And yes, I have been in here in the UK. I'm not sure if you know, we have two Globe theatres. So there's one in London and there's one in Stratford on Avon, which is like the original Globe Theatre. And I've been to both, luckily. Um, yes, you do get a sense of being in the time because the fact of it being the Globe, it's all around you, like, and which is a really different experience from what we do now. And they keep the tradition of having the audience also in different areas. So people are coming to the theatre and standing. They do stand around the stage just like they would have back then. And then you have people, the people who would have had the money, they sit and they have a cushion, and then higher up and things like that. So yeah, you do get that sense that this was how it was back then. It's very cool. And I hope that if you have the chance to come after all this, that you can have the experience too, because it's very cool.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Thank you very much, Mitzi. And Alma has another question. Go.
Hi, it's Megan. How do you learn Spanish?
Well, for me personally, I did try and do a class last year, but unfortunately, that was just when COVID all started. So I went to a few classes and then, yeah, I couldn't go anymore, which was really sad. But yeah, so there's a lot of chances here. They also have colleges where you can learn and things like that. So yeah, I'm thinking that I should definitely try and find another class soon. Hopefully, what if I can, it's all just so crazy at the moment. But yeah, definitely classes I think are really good. Learning with other people and it's really useful.
Anglia teaches
Yeah, well, there you
Spanish.
go. Exactamente.
Mini promo, of course.
Sí, no
Yeah.
sería mala idea, ¿no?
Igual y alguien aquí sabe español y podemos
Claro.
enseñarlo, ¿verdad? ¿Quién sabe? Pero pues sí, thank you. Thank you, Alma, again. And Celia has another question. Go.
¿Por qué no la escribí antes? In which language do you speak with your boyfriend?
95% of the time in English, which is not good. It's very sad, but we sometimes try, but then we forget that we're supposed to be speaking Spanish and we just start going back because his English is perfect. So for us, it's really easy just to speak English. But yeah, no, I always say we need to make more of an effort, and then we forget. But yeah, hopefully someday soon I can tell you English and Spanish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Celia. Any other question?
Yo,
Échale, Therese.
bueno, well, you say you are learning Spanish, right? Or well, you started learning
Mhm.
Spanish. What you found the most difficult part of it, like vocabulary or grammar or what?
I think for me, the vocab is okay because my memory is okay remembering things. It's the sentence structure I think that I struggle with. Where does the adjective go? Where does the noun go? I always get confused on that. And I think tenses also are difficult. But things like that, it's just when you know it, then you know it. So yeah, I think the vocab and stuff is kind of okay, but the other things can be the rules of the language can be difficult. But I guess I think each language has that kind of different. I remember I did do at school German lessons for a very short time, and I remember like that was completely different. And I guess it's just that there's some things which are quite similar, Spanish and English, and then there's some things which are just really you couldn't guess. So yeah, that didn't really did that answer the question? I hope so.
Yes,
the
yes.
sentence structure.
Me, I have a question.
No, you cannot ask questions.
Ash, okay.
Échale.
No,
Go ahead.
I was thinking that, I mean, Maya mentioned that, I mean, she thinks, you think that it would be really, really important for people to learn another language. I mean, especially from your point of view, no, in which the assumption is that everyone speaks English and that we should communicate in English, no? And the importance of learning any other language in any case. And I was thinking about the question that Chivis asked about, no, and I don't remember who, about Celia, the famous languages. You mentioned that Spanish would be kind of the popular one to learn, no? Why do you think so? I mean, why Spanish particularly? Because I know that, for an example, if you go to France, if you go to Paris, and this is a very particular perception, when I went there and I tried to communicate in France in English, most of them neglected me, like, and then you start speaking Spanish, and it's like, sí, órale, and so there is like this, like, confrontation, let's say. Why do you think Spanish would be like the most important to learn, or the most, the important to learn?
Yeah, I think because it's more widely spoken, and then I guess it depends why you want to learn the language. And I mean, for me, I would learn it because if I can speak Spanish, obviously for me, I can talk to my partner and his family, friends. But also, even if you don't necessarily have a personal link to somebody who is a native Spanish speaker, you can say, oh, a lot of people in the world speak Spanish. And I think French, of course, is spoken outside of France, and Italian, you kind of think Spanish is, if I know Spanish, that's a good second language to know. So I would say it's just on that kind of, if I'm gonna go out to the world and have another language, Spanish is probably a good choice. But it could also be Mandarin. Depends on where you want to go, I guess. But it's also a lovely language, I think. I think Spanish and French are my two most lovely sounding languages. Yeah.
Which is also important, no? I mean, the sound of it.
Definitely, yeah.
Like what Celia was saying, no? That it's like love at first, love at first sound, when you listen to, and then you say, that's it, that's the language I want to learn, no?
Yeah, definitely.
We have questions on the chat.
that's right. Thank you, Sergio, for your question. And Daniel, échale.
Hello, otra vez. I have a funny question. Exist restaurants of tacos in England? Do you like tacos?
Yes, I do. I do. I had some really amazing ones in Mexico. In it was in Mexico City. We were somewhere, and they were so good. I think that Mexican cuisine and tacos here are only recently becoming popular. Um, there are there is one very famous chain, so they have places like lots of different restaurants. That is called Oaxaca, but it's spelled Wahaca. So it's like it's not the spelling. It's so that we in the UK can pronounce it, which my partner finds very annoying. So they that is really popular now. And yeah, there's also like independent, smaller places. In Newcastle, when I lived there, there was like a taco place locally. So yeah, tacos are great. But my favorite food that I had in Mexico was sopa de tortilla. It was so good. It's my favorite.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have two more questions, and I think we're gonna have to wrap this up. Dos preguntas más y vamos a concluir con este mini segmento. Dice Celia, la sopa de tortillas, la onda, yes, sopa de tortillas, really cool. And Alma, no, Dani, sorry, Dani, go ahead.
Hi, nice to meet you. I have a question. When you visited Mexico, did you like Mexico?
Hi, Danny. Nice to meet you too. And yes, I thought Mexico was fantastic. Um, when I was there, we were in Mexico City for a few days, which was so cool. Walking around the streets there was amazing. And we did some tourist things also, which I really liked. We went to the Chinampas. What's it called? Xochimilco also. So that was awesome. And then we went to Guanajuato also, and driving around there was crazy. Going in the tunnels and the tiny streets was quite scary for me, but it was very cool. Yeah, and I'm hoping to go back and see even more places. But yeah, Mexico is super cool. Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dani and Alma. The last question of this segment.
Thank you. It's me again. Okay. Um, what is the sorry, ya me están viendo que me chivió. What is the traditional food in England?
The
Or
traditional
uh-huh.
the traditional book?
Food.
Oh, food. Sorry. Yeah. Well, um, it's really, I guess, boring food. The stereotype of, I should have said, the stereotype of British food being not very nice is kind of true because the food is like a piece of meat and two vegetables. That is the thing. Meat and two veg is what we say. So it's not very exciting. But yeah, it's actually a very good thing that we have globalization now. We have all the other global foods coming because it's making eating food in this country a lot more interesting. And British cuisine is just not very good. But I do like some of the traditional stuff like the desserts like puddings and apple crumble, things like that are really nice.
Fish and
But generally,
chips.
fish and chips, yeah, of course. Oh, I like fish and chips. Yeah, but mostly it's quite boring.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alma.
Well, thank you, Alma, thank you, Maya, for this wonderful presentation, for all of this very interesting information about you, about your country, your culture, and everything. Muchas gracias, Maya, por toda esta información tan interesante. sobre tu país, sobre tu cultura, sobre ti.